Hello to all my YouTube viewers, all my chatters in the chat room, all my lurkers that lurk around, and all my Memorex viewers that'll view this thing later. Glad to have you with me today on the 13th day of September 2016. Oh man, 13th day. We're almost 2 weeks into the month already. Fall is upon us, whether we like it or not. The leaves have not started turning here in Indiana yet, but it won't be long. Temperatures are, I think, the rest of the week during the day and 50s at night. So temperatures are a little calmer. On trees a little bit today, so there's a little breeze blowing out there. I went out and worked in the garden some yesterday, and it's coming to an end. You can tell the season's coming to an end out there. There's not a whole lot left to have to do. I've got some taters and sweet taters and stuff will have to be dug later, and there's a few straggler tomatoes on the vines that up. But I went out and got some squash yesterday. I think there might be a few more squash come on, and I got the grapes. Good golly almighty, there must have been 10 pounds of grapes. I'm probably gonna have to juice them up or make some jelly or something out of some of them. Man, are they good. Homegrown grapes. I'll tell you what, if you've never had homegrown grapes, you need to find somebody that's got some grapevines, because it ain't like them store-bought ones. These are sweet. Holy smoke. They're about 100 times sweeter than the ones that you get in the grocery store. Straight off the vines like that. Man, they're good. But we got a whole lot of news to bring you today. My goodness gracious. And we got some good ones too. Wow, 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 wow. I'll just hop right on into this here. It's off of BizPack Review, and it says Hillary's body double tends. Man, I've ate too many of them sweet grapes, I think. Hillary's body double tends. It's third time a charm. Hillary's body double trends after previously limp Clinton spryly pops out of daughter's apartment. There we go. And I'm going to read this article, and then I got a picture I'm going to share with you. Is Clinton, you know, oh, this is going to be a comedy of errors today. I can see this coming. After Hillary Clinton collapsed Sunday in New York City and reemerged about an hour and a half later from her daughter's apartment, conspiracy theorists began to circulate a rumor that they weren't the same person. It was hard for some to marry the two images of Clinton, one of her limp body being dragged into an SUV and whisked away from the ceremony, and second, of a chipper, spry woman posing for pictures with a child and telling reporters she was feeling great. Here's a summary of the fun. One popular observation was that Clinton appeared thinner when she left Chelsea's apartment. And another was that it seemed Clinton didn't have her usual entourage and security when she reemerged. Wouldn't be the first time a world leader used a body double. Former Iraq dictator Saddam Hussein was notorious for his use of decoys. Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, and even Osama bin Laden all also used body doubles to keep enemies off of their trail. Many thought the idea was ridiculous, but some who said they were skeptical at first started to wonder. And there's some pictures and stuff in this if you want to take a look at those. But I've got a good picture that I want to try to share with you. So let me get things organized here a little bit for this so that we get this up here where you can see it. A friend of mine sent this to me last night, and it's the best one that I have found thus far of enter double. And let's see, find the right buttons to push here so that we get this up. And we're going to try to do, let's see. I think this is the one I want. We'll try to share this, and hopefully it will come out where you can see it. And we'll put this down, and there's the pictures, and the top of it says I call BS, and the one on your left will be Hillary on Friday with 3 chins and wrinkles, And the one on the right is Hillary on Sunday, 90 minutes after feigning. She lost her wrinkles and 2 chins. And then I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see it a little bit better. Maybe, whoops, that's as big as it goes right there. Here you get to see those are not the same people. I mean, earrings are different and all. So, you know, they're trying to pull one over on us, is what they're trying to do. But that's that story. So, I mean, you know, this is just kind of amazing to me that they just keep trying to pull the eyes in all of this. Holy smoke! I don't really understand what, you know, what they're trying to prove. They're trying to keep her in the election, I guess. With this, the next article I have here is off of colorglasses.com, and it's a story about the blue sunglasses she was wearing. And it says Parkinson's disease with tremors, blue glasses with blue lenses. Looking through blue plastic sheet or wearing blue glasses or glasses with blue lenses may help relieve the symptoms of dyskinesia caused by Parkinson's disease, a neurological disorder. Dyskinesia may also appear after long-term use or high dosage of drugs used to treat psychosis such as schizophrenia. Tardive dyskinesia symptoms of tardive dyskinesia are involuntary, repetitive body movements with no meaning to them. These can be rapid, uncontrollable movements of the arms and legs, or movements like tongue protrusion, lip grimacing, smacking, rapid blinking of the eye, perusing and puckering of the lips. These severe involuntary movements of the extremities can be debilitating. It seems amazing, but simply looking through the color blue may help relieve the symptoms of dyskinesia. And there's a YouTube video on this one where you can take a look at what the glasses actually do. All of these URLs, of course, are in the description of the video if you want to take a look at them and see what they're talking about there. And the next one we have is also about Hillary. She seems to be in the news constantly. And this is off of the Conservative Daily Post. And it says, Assange just delivered the next batch of emails. She's toast. How many times have we heard that? I mean, it's like the little boy that cried wolf, ain't it? You know, every time they release stuff, it's like, oh, this is going to be it. This is going to put her in jail. This is going to, no. She's Teflon. I'm telling you, she's Teflon. There has never been a time in U.S. history where our leadership has failed us badly. Over the last either years, that's how it reads, Obama, with the help of Hillary Clinton, has done everything in his power to destroy what makes his country great. Obama wants our military depleted. He wants the world not to be afraid of us. He wants millions of immigrants to come and go as they please, and he is perfectly content with allowing ISIS to grow into the global threat that they are today. Dying that WikiLeaks has been a world champion of bringing justice to those that are corrupt and abuse their political powers like Hillary Clinton. Following and reporting on a brand new leak late last night, Julian Assange, editor-in-chief for WikiLeaks, not only guaranteed that he had enough evidence on Hillary Clinton to put her in jail, he released a PDF file that we have. The file from Congress reveals that there are strong ties between Hillary Clinton and high members of the Islamic cleric in Turkey. And it seems to have a problem wanting to scroll on up, but really, you get the basic idea of this. He's got more stuff that he's going to release. And, you know, I understand why he's just leaking out a little bit at a time and a little bit at a time. And he's trying to keep the spotlight on her and her shenanigans. But, gee whiz, will it put her in jail? I don't think so. Ever go. We have here is off of 100%fedup.com, Boy, ain't that the that's a good URL, I'll tell you what. Obama's new Black Panthers march with machetes and machine guns chanting Black Lives Matter. And there is a video in this if you'd like to see what they're doing. It says Black Panther March took place in different parts of St. Louis with machete and gun-toting groups yelling Black Lives Matter and justice for Darren Seals. The big question is, what does this accomplish? About 50 protesters marched through the streets of Central West End, briefly shutting down Euclid on Sunday afternoon. I saw people marching down, carrying machine guns, machetes, and chanting Black Power, said Stephen White, a bystander. The protest began around 3:30 p.m. with individuals walking south on Taylor Avenue to Lindell Boulevard before going north on Euclid to Page, where the group disbanded. It wasn't really a surprise to me because, like, I've seen it a billion times, but I feel like other people on the outside looking in, it was definitely a wake-up that it's real out here, what's going on, said White. A similar scene played out in North St. Louis. It's believed the murder of Darren Seals, a noted Black Lives Matter activist, was driving factor in the timing of the protests. Many posts on social media about the protest also included the hashtag Justice for Darren Seals. The marchers were walking in the street, briefly tying up traffic on Euclid. There were no incidents or arrests. Several of the individuals identified themselves as members of the Black Panther Party with rifles in plain sight. The big question is if it is legal. If you have conceal and carry license, you fail under Chapter 571, or I'm sorry, you fall under Chapter 571, which will then allow you to briefly open carry a firearm, said Matt Fry, criminal defense attorney. Fry says the key word there is briefly. It is pushing the law because the statute is clear. It is briefly, and it has to be concealable firearm. So the definition of firearm can apply to rifles and assault rifles, but when you can't conceal it at any point, then you shouldn't be able to take it out. So that's problematic, said Fry. What in the world does this accomplish? So there you have that. It looks to me like that so that they can bring on martial law, but hey, that's just my opinion. The next one we have here is off of Fuel Fix, and it says creditors lose historic sums in oil bankruptcies, Moody says. For the lenders that bankrolled the stale, or holy smoke, my tongue is a mess today. For the lenders that bankrolled the shale boom, the oil market crash may leave as much financial wreckage behind as the devastating telecom bust in the early 2000s, Moody's Investor Service said. On average, banks and bond investors have recovered only about $1 on every $5 they poured into the U.S. oil companies that eventually went bankrupt in 2015, according to the credit rating agency. That amount is about a third of the money creditors historically have pulled out of drillers who default on their debt. It's slightly less than investors recovered from bankrupt telecom firms in 2002 and can only be described as catastrophic, the credit ratings agency said in a new report released on Monday. Creditors aren't getting much of their money back because the oil companies that went bankrupt last year were mostly small firms that ran up high debts in the heady days of the U.S. shale drilling bonanza and don't have the assets or access to capital that larger firms do. It's definitely difficult when you're small, said Anol Jossi, a senior analyst in the corporate finance group of Moody's Investors Service in New York. If you're large, you have the bank supporting you. Small companies don't have that. When you have less flexibility, high debt, low oil prices, and high cost operations, you get a perfect storm. In the oil and gas bankruptcy cases Moody studied, investors in risky corporate debt known as junk bonds got fewer than 6 cents on the dollar in the bankruptcy proceedings that followed the worst oil downturn in a generation. That's compared to the average 41% so-called high-yield investors historically have recovered. Your first in line to be paid back recovered about 1/5 less than usual at 81%. So far, the energy companies that filed for bankruptcy in 2016 have recovered more cash for investors than last year's cohort, largely because this year's group includes some big companies. Still, Moody notes 2016 bankruptcy cases, which have doubled in number compared to last year, could push the tally of energy-related bankruptcies above the telecom bust. Have off of Fortune, exec who headed phony accounts unit collected $125 million. Months ago, CEO John Stumpf praised the executive in hot water as standard bearer for the bank. Wells Fargo and Company, sandbagger in chief, is leaving the giant bank with enormous payday of $124.6 million. In fact, despite beefed up clawback provisions instituted by the bank shortly after the financial crisis and the recent revelations of massive misconduct, it does not appear that Wells Fargo is requiring Terry Tolstedt, who was in charge of the unit where employees opened more than 2 million largely unauthorized customer accounts, a seemingly routine practice that employees internally referred to as sandbagging, to give back any of her 9-figure pay. On Thursday, Wells Fargo agreed to pay $185 million, including the largest penalty ever imposed by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, to settle claims that it defrauded its customers. The bank's shareholders will ultimately have to swallow the cost of that settlement. It had fired 5,300 employees over 5 years related to the bad behavior. Tolstedt, however, is walking away from Wells Fargo with a very full bank account and praise. In the July announcement of her exit, which made no mention of the soon-to-be settled case, Wells Fargo CEO John Stumpf said Tolstedt had been one of the bank's most important leaders and standard bearer of our culture and a champion for our customers. On Thursday, Richard Cordray, the head of the CFPB, had a different take. It's quite clear that the actions of Tolstedt's unit are unfair and abusive practices under federal law, said Cordray. They are a violation of trust and abuse of trust. A spokesperson for Wells Fargo said the timing of Tolstedt's exit was the result of a personal decision to retire after 27 years with the bank. The spokesperson declined to comment on whether the bank was considering clawing back Tolstedt's back pay. In a statement following the settlement, Wells Fargo said, Wells Fargo reached these agreements consistent with our commitment to customers and in the interest of putting this matter behind us. Wells Fargo is committed to putting our customers' interest first 100% of the time, and we regret and take responsibility for any instances where customers may have received a product that they did not request. Shortly after the financial crisis, big banks in the nation, including Wells Fargo, promised that their top bankers would not be able to keep large paydays if it was found that those rewards were gained through harmful conduct. It was supposed to be the stick of Wall Street bonuses. But the latest example of fraud at Wells Fargo shows that the big banks are unwilling to wield those sticks, especially when it comes to their top executives. It's not clear how closely or at all Tolstedt was responsible for or even aware of the widespread abusive tactics at the bank. Neither the CFPB nor the Los Angeles City Attorney's Office, which sued the bank, named Tolstedt directly. Wells Fargo said that the 5,300 firings happened over 5 years and included managers as well as employees. It's likely that Tolstedt managed at least part of that purge. But in bringing the charges, an official from CFPB said Wells Fargo was aware of the behavior for longer without putting a stop to it. What's more, Tolstedt ran the community banking division of the bank, which included its retail banking and credit card divisions, during the entire period in which the customer abuse was alleged, which goes back to 2011. The CFPB said about 3/4 of the unauthorized accounts opened by employees of Wells Fargo were bank deposit accounts. Another 565,000 were unauthorized credit card applications. Tolstedt took over the division in 2008 after Wells Fargo merged with Wachovia during the financial crisis. Tolstead was a regular on Fortune's Most Powerful Women's list. She was replaced on this year's list by Mark Mack, by Mary Mack, who is taking over her job at the bank. Tolstead was regularly praised for her unit's ability to get customers to open numerous accounts for a number of years. Wells Fargo proxy statement, which details executive pay, cited high cross-selling ratios as a reason that Tolstead had earned her roughly $9 million in annual pay. For instance, in Wells Fargo's 2015 proxy statement, the company said its compensation committee had authorized Tolstead's $7.3 million stock and cash bonus that year because under her leadership, community banking achieved a number of strategic objectives, including continued strong cross-sell ratios, record deposit levels, and a continued success of mobile banking initiatives. Later that year, the LA City Attorney's Office sued the bank because of its sales tactics, saying that many of the abusive practices came from intense pressure on Wells Fargo employees to get customers to open up numerous accounts. A separate class action of former employees alleged they were fired for not meeting cross-selling goals or going along with aggressive sales tactics. Earlier this year, when Wells Fargo released its annual proxy statement, it once again said that in order to justify her multi-million-dollar bonus, Tolstead's division had achieved a number of strategic objectives, but this time, for the first time in years, cross-selling wasn't listed as one of them. When Tolstead leaves Wells Fargo later this year, on top of the $1.7 million in salary she has received over the past few years, she will be walking away with $124.6 million in stock options and restricted Wells Fargo shares. Some of that hasn't vested yet, but Tolstead gets to keep all of it because she technically retired. Had she been fired, Tolstead would have had to forfeit at least $45 million of that exit pay and possibly more. Wells Fargo's proxy statement says that the bank has strong recoupment and clawback policies and that the bank will revoke bonus pay if it is found that the conduct of the executive resulted in representational harm to the bank or that the executives was not able to identify or manage risk in his or her division. But there is no sign that Wells Fargo is going to ask Tolstead to return even a sliver of her jackpot. This appears to be exactly the situation that clawback provisions were created for, says Dennis Kelcher, president of Better Markets, a group that lobbies for more regulation of the big banks. If they don't apply here, when will they apply? On Wall Street, the carrots are still widely handed out. The sticks, however, remain out of sight. Holy moly, I'll tell you what. How would you like to be a customer of that bank and them opening up false accounts in your name, and then you get charged penalties on those accounts? People just didn't pay any attention to just went ahead and paid it or didn't pay any attention to on what was being charged to their accounts. Because that is a lot of dough to be raked in. And I'll tell you what, if you're a customer of Wells Fargo, I strongly suggest that you get your money out of there. Is it an inconvenience to change banks? Yes, it is. But do you want to leave your money in a place that's known for this kind of conduct? Okay. The next one we have here is off of BizPac Review. Miami Immigration Court routinely defies Department of Homeland Security deportation orders. I wasn't aware we really were deporting anybody, but okay. It says Miami authorities are allowing illegal immigrants to remain in the country despite the Department of Homeland Security ordering they be deported. Judges on the Miami Immigration Court rank as the 5th most lenient in the country, according to the report by Syracuse University's Transitional Records Access Clearinghouse, or TRAC. Nationwide, 57% of illegal immigrants up for deportation at DHS request were allowed to stay in the U.S. in the first 10 months of fiscal year 2016, but in Miami, a full 75.8% of all illegal aliens slated for deportation were allowed to remain. Across the board, we have great judiciary on the immigration court in Miami. Number one, it is extremely diverse. They have good representation and cross-section of the country and the community. There are Hispanics, African American, men, women, young judges, and older, really experienced judges, said Miami Immigration Authority Wilfredo Allen in defense of the court. Many foreign nationals who are in front of Miami judges have long-standing ties to the community. U.S. citizen children and spouses, and thus are eligible for Obama prosecutorial discretion or low priority removal. And so DHS moves the court to administratively close the case. Optin attorney Tammy Fox Isikoff in an interview with the Miami Herald. 25% of the illegal immigrants permitted to remain in the U.S. are Mexican, according to the track report. The Northern Triangle countries, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras, which have been suffering from long-term drug-fueled gangland warfare, made up 44% of the illegal immigrants allowed to stay in the U.S. in 2016. Illegal immigrants, numbering 96,223 in total, have been permitted to remain in the U.S. so far in 2016 versus the 106,676 for all of 2015. On track to exceed 2015 numbers of illegal immigrants courts will overlook if track data is accurate. The Miami Immigration Court is a federal court which operates under the authority of the Department of Justice, Office of the Chief Administration Judge, with the Executive Office Immigration Review. Other cities which allegedly surpass Miami in terms of defying DHS deportation orders are Phoenix, New York, Denver, and San Antonio, according to the track report. Judges in these sorts of courts are typically paid a hefty sum for their services, whether they uphold the law or not. 6 judges on the Boston Immigration Court rake in between $137,000 and $167,000 a year. Boston Immigration Court is the 8th most lenient in the country, letting 73.9% of illegal immigrants stick around. So there is that story. That's enlightening. Have here is off of Breitbart.com. Cain tells gays Catholic Church opposition to same-sex marriage is going to change. Tim Kaine is the new pope. Over the weekend, vice presidential candidate Tim Kaine told a room full of LGBT activists that the Catholic Church's traditional opposition to same-sex marriage would change because God approves of homosexuality. The Virginia senator, who describes himself as the traditional Catholic, spoke to the national dinner of the Human Rights Campaign on Saturday, assuring them of his full and complete unconditional support for marriage equality, while acknowledging that his marriage is at odds with current doctrine of the church that I still attend, Kaine went on to say. But I think that's going to change too. I think that's going to change, he says. And this has something trying to play here, and we're going to try to stop that.
A Vitamix blender is among the most...
Stop that silly ad. Playing the armchair theologian, Kaine said his support is rooted in teaching of the Bible and specifically the book of Genesis. I think it's going to change because my church also teaches me about a creator in the first chapter of Genesis who surveys the entire world, including mankind, and says it's very good. It is very good, Kaine said, in an apparent reference to God's alleged nod of approval for homosexual practice. Kaine then suggested that opposition to gay marriage means to challenge God. I want to add, who am I to challenge God for the beautiful diversity of the human family? I think we're supposed to celebrate it, not challenge it, Kaine said. Same-sex marriage is not the only issue where Kaine parts ways with the Catholic Church. He has called himself a strong supporter of Roe versus Wade, and his perfect pro-abortion voting record in Congress earned him a 100% rating from abortion giant Planned Parenthood and high praise from the National Abortion Rights, or the NARAL. While the abortion lobby has showered Cain with praise, several U.S. Catholic bishops have challenged Cain's claim to being a faithful Catholic by citing his open dissent from essential moral teachings of the Church. In a Facebook post titled, BP picked Tim Cain a Catholic? Bishop Thomas J. Tobin of Providence noted that Cain has been widely identified as a Roman Catholic, while at the same time he publicly supports freedom of choice for abortion, same-sex marriage, gay adoptions, and the ordination of women as priests. All of these positions are clearly contrary to well-established Catholic teachings. All of them have been opposed by Pope Francis as well, Tobin wrote, dashing the left's spurious claim that Cain is some kind of Pope Francis Catholic. Senator Cain has said, "My faith is central to everything I do," but apparently and unfortunately his faith isn't central to his public political life. Concluded. Similarly, in a recent column, Philadelphia Archbishop Charles J. Chaput also took issue with Cain, as well as with sitting Vice President Joe Biden, the two most visible Catholics in American politics. These two prominent Catholics both seem to publicly ignore or invent the content of their Catholic faith as they go along. Anyone who claims the Catholic label while not actually believing what the Catholic faith holds to be true and letting it guide their thoughts and actions is simply fooling himself or herself, and even more importantly, misleading others, he added. Introducing Cain Saturday night, Human Rights Campaign President Chad Griffin called Republican nominee Donald Trump the gravest threat the LGBTQ community has ever faced in a presidential election. So there you have news on Tim Cain. The next one that we have here is shocking. This is off of the teaparty.org. It says leprosy hits California. Primary school kids struck down with biblical flesh-rotting skin disease. Parents have refused to send their children to Indian Hills Elementary after receiving a letter warning of 2 possible cases. This is off of the Sun reporting. It says parents have now refused to send their children to Indian Hills Elementary in Jerpa Valley after notes were sent home warning parents that 2 students might be sick with leprosy. The school, about an hour's drive from Los Angeles, sent out the warning on Friday, CBS Los Angeles has reported. Jurupa Valley Unified Superintendent Elliot Duchon, I guess it is, Duchon, said the school's classrooms had been decontaminated in response to the threat. He said the 2 students who had been warned of the potential diagnosis by a doctor had alerted the school's nursing staff. Duchon said for parents, they need to make a decision for the children, but we're not recommending any precautions. There is not a risk at this time. The students believed to have been infected have also been pulled out of class for the time being. It's unclear whether the infected students are related to each other or whether they had recently been overseas. Riverside County Director of Disease Control, Barbara Cole, said, "We have not identified any risk at the school, and it's very difficult to transmit to others. Despite the attempted reassurances, dozens of parents have kept their children home from school after receiving the letter." About 90 students were absent from the school on Tuesday morning, 3 times the usual number. Potentially infected will not have the diagnosis confirmed for several weeks. More than 400 school parents met with health officials after school on Wednesday, but were left frustrated when authorities refused to answer any questions about the potentially infected children and their condition. As part of the school's cautionary measures, parents are also set to be interviewed about whether their families have traveled to any less developed countries where the leprosy may have been picked up. Holy moly. I'm bringing all these illegal aliens in here, and they are not checked to see what diseases they may have. I mean, there's been outbreaks of tuberculosis in places, all kinds of things going on. And now leprosy. Next one we have is off of the organicandhealthy.org. And see, these things don't come up in the mainstream media, and that's why I'm bringing this stuff to you, because you need to be aware of what is going on. This is, it just doesn't seem right. Michigan farmer forced to dump 40,000 pounds of cherries to make way for import crops. Seriously? In northwestern Michigan sits the cherry capital of the world in Traverse City on the coast of one of the world's largest freshwater lakes, Lake Michigan. The city is known as the largest producer of cherries in the United States. One frustrated Traverse City farmer claims that little-known government marketing program is in essence forcing cherry farmers to throw away huge portions of their crops, leaving it to rot in the sun. This makes way for imports from other countries to be used instead. Mark Satushi of the 80-acre Santucci farm shared the news on July the 30th of this year on a Facebook post that went viral, garnering nearly 67,000 shares. These cherries are beautiful, but we have to dump 14% of our tart cherry crop on the ground to rot. Why? So we can allow import of 200 million pounds of cherries from overseas. It just doesn't seem right. Government order forces farmers to dump thousands of dollars worth of cherries. Mr. Santucci continued his argument in the Facebook post, armed at raising awareness about an agreement imposed by the U.S. Department of Agriculture that he believes is outdated and harmful. What do you think? Share this on your Facebook page, it says. So now, we have schools open and children to feed in these schools, and food is being thrown away from the fields. Are you kidding me? I mean, if nothing else, allow that stuff to be donated to the schools or to the homeless shelters where people need to be fed instead of dumping it on the ground to rot. Oh my goodness, this government needs to go, and we need to get one in there that's got some common sense. This is unbelievable. Oh my. Well, I'll tell you what. I've got one more here for you, and this one will give you room to pause and think. And this is going to be screen share. A lot of times we get to thinking that our lives are just awful. Boy, do we have problems. Man, oh man, you know, this thing going on, that thing going on, this one said this and that one said that, and look, I've got this problem and I've got that problem, and how am I going to overcome this or that or the other thing? Hey, listen, life is happening to you. And as bad as you may think you have it, there's somebody else that has it worse. And we spend so much time thinking about the issues and the problems that we have that we neglect to think about the issues and problems of those around us. So I was handed this and told that the author of it wants it shared far and wide and wants it to go viral. And I am happy to share this on the show with all of you. And I hope that you all will share it as well. The URL to this is also in the description of the video. But this is how we're going to close out the show today. And if you have any empathy in you whatsoever, I think that you'll really appreciate this. So I want to get a tissue handy because it's a tearjerker. So we're going to share the screen, and we're going to find it here, and we're going to pull it up. There we go. And we're going to share that, and we're going to get back here to this video, and we're going to make a big screen so you get to see it real good, and we're going to play it for you.
My name is Staff Sergeant David Crockett, United States Army.
My name is Tyler Southern. I was a corporal in the United States Marine Corps.
Just outside of Samara, Iraq, we were hit with a massive IED.
We were given accurate intelligence that we're up to 6 Taliban held up in a compound.
Just a blast of hot air just came over me, and an intense pressure that you couldn't imagine.
We all split up and took different sides. I led my team to the far side, which was laced with 4 IEDs.
At that point, it basically rendered me unconscious for 45 minutes. It's in and out for about an hour. So I basically kind of came to in a field hospital at Fob Spiker in Tikrit.
We all missed the first one on the front corner and turkey peeking a doorway. I stepped on the second. 10 pounds of homemade explosives, buried 6 inches, detonated immediately.
I've been home about 6 months now, and I still have my doubts. I'm not sure how I got here, or how I'm gonna get out. My mama says I look the same as I did before I left. But if she could see inside of me, it would scare her to death. I can still taste the powder from the barrel of my gun. I can hear my sergeant screaming, "Run, soldier, run!" I can feel the backpack on my shoulders, got it weighed a ton. I see death in every single form. They taught me how to put that uniform on and get it on. Last Saturday they honored us in a small parade downtown. They shot off those fireworks. I nearly hit the ground. While they smiled and cheered for us, all I could do was stare. 'Cause part of me is here at home, but part of me is back there. And I can still taste the powder from the barrel of my gun. And I can hear my sergeant screaming, "Run, soldier, run!" I can feel the backpack on my shoulders, got it weighed a ton. And I see death in every single fall. Taught me how to put that uniform on. Just handing it all. God, there's no end in sight. Even though I'm home now, still fighting for my life. I can still taste the powder from the barrel of my gun. I can hear my sergeant screaming, "Run, soldier, run!" I can feel the backpack on my shoulders, got it weighed a ton. Every single thought taught me how to put that uniform on. I just can't get it on.
I've prided myself on finding the silver lining in absolutely every situation. No matter how hard it is to find, there is a bright side to everything. I'm relieved of 3 of my original issued limbs, but that gave me the opportunity to find true love. Family made him a possibility. You know, you might have to widen your gaze, but it's there.
There's that video for you. Gives you pause to think, don't it? Think about the other guy a little bit. And if it don't make you think about your government and all the shenanigans they're pulling, all the hateful things they're doing, all for greed, how they're messing with all these other governments and trying to instigate war in all these other countries and making the other countries just hate us. And back home here, they're having us dump food while we have people going hungry. We have homeless people. We have veterans that aren't being taken care of. And our government, the people that we have elected into power, are so busy trying to cause trouble everywhere else and trying to see how much that they can destroy this nation and just letting everything go to hell. And if they don't get your ire up, I don't know what will. But man, I'll tell you what, while all this other stuff goes on, here we are, able to create. And we need to be thinking about what we can create that's good, instead of what we can create that's bad or evil or causing problems for each other or other people. See what good you can do today. See if there isn't something that you can do good for somebody else, whether it's donating to a charity, whether it's being nice to somebody and helping them with something that they need done. Good to do for somebody. The more good that we spread, the more positive energy that we put out. This country needs positive energy. We need to stop with the negative. Go out today, put your feet in the grass, kick off them shoes, and curl your toes up in the grass. Take a breath of fresh air. Ground yourself. Take a nap. Let your mind heal. And then go out and try to do something nice for somebody today. Look for the good. And we'll see you back here tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye.